Hey guys, it's a Small here, and I'm finally here with Would Have Been 10 Join Young Justice, Part 3. Now, before we start, I don't know if this is a good spot for my microphone, but before we start, if somebody asked me to do Part 4 in this comments below, in the first 10 minutes of uploading it, I'm gonna smack them. Because this is 9 pages long. People who don't know, 9 pages is maybe 5 minutes. That means this is most likely gonna be. One page is like 5 minutes. So do the math. This might be almost an hour long. So don't you dare go asking for part 4 the minute it is uploaded. And also, I have a gaming channel. It's not that good, but it'd still be nice if somebody goes and check it out. It's in the description below. So go down there and click and go to my game channel and click subscribe and share or something like that. With that said, let's start this damn video already. My voice is gonna be dead after recording this. So we start off with what looks like an old factory, but then a bunch of men in red cloaks surround 4 other men. One of these men is a muscular man who wears a muscular mask, a black tank top. This man is Bane. But then one of the cloaked men starts speaking a foreign language. He says, "Our supply master proclaims he would depart this facility if one of you defeats his champion in a single combat." The man in the wrestler's mask and tank top then pushes his man out of the way and walks through a sliding metal door. He says, "Make it interesting," before walking into the arena. But as he enters, the door on the other side opens, and a skinny man with something around his neck walks out. But then when the cloak figure gives Bane some sort of band or armband with some vials, and Bane says, "You give me back my greatest weapon?" He says, "What's the catch?" The cloak figure says, "No catch. It would be hardly a test for the champion powers if you're not the best." Bane then puts the band on his arm, and it powers up. As he plugs it into the back of his head, a wet liquid starts to flow through it. Bane starts groaning as his pupils enlarge, but then his body and muscles mass enlarges until he's now 3 times his size. He then says, "You got me at my best." And I'm so sorry for people in the background. I told them to be quiet, but they don't listen. But like I was saying, he then cracks his neck to limber himself up. But on the other side, a lady wearing similar clothes to the skinny man injects a serum to the skinny man. He then grabs his head and he screams in pain. His body then starts to grow and distort. His teeth turn into fangs. His flesh turns a dark sickly green, and part of his flesh starts to rip, revealing the muscles underneath. This creature's name is Mammoth. He then gets up and growls before charging at Bane, but Bane holds his ground and then uppercuts Mammoth, and then punches him in the chest, but it does nothing to the beast. Mammoth then grabs the back of Bane's neck and punches him in the gut before uppercutting him and side-hooking him in the face. He then grabs Bane's arm and swings him into a row of metal pipes. He then charges at Bane at lightning speeds and rams him into metal pipes, denting them. But the pipes start releasing steam as they're being broken. But Mammoth grabs Bane and throws him out of the steam. He then jumps out of the steam and lands on Bane while punching him in the face and stick around, creating a small hole, knocking Bane out. The cloak figure then says, "Hail Cobra! Hail Cobra! Hail Cobra!" Everybody in the cloak starts saying, "Hail Cobra! Hail Cobra! Hail Cobra!" with each one getting louder than the last. Watching all of it is a darkly, sickly green man with a cloak-like hoodie, with a hoodie looking like a cobra. We then cut to Ben, who is surrounded by Aqualad, Kid Flash, Robin, Miss Martian, and Superboy. And Ben says, "Are you sure you guys want to do this?" And Aqualad says, "It will help us improve if we test our skills against a pro." But Kid Flash says, "So we're gonna kick your butt." Ben says, "Well, don't say I didn't warn you." Ben then slaps the watch and turns into Brainstorm. But as the young Justice League gets ready to fight, time slows down, and Brainstorm says calculating odds, their advantages, enhanced strength, enhanced speed, agility, larger numbers, and unique abilities. My advantages, higher intelligence. He then says, Flash will attack first. Any attack I use, he will dodge. He then says, use the ground to my advantage. Wally then spreads a Brainstorm, but Brainstorm electrocutes the ground, and thanks to it being metal, it transfers throughout the entire ground, electrocuting Kid Flash, and sending him to the ground, temporarily paralyzed. Kid Flash says, what the hell? Brainstorm then thinks to himself, Aqualad will attempt to attack me with his blades, which are made of water. He then sees Aqualad blades come at him, but he sends electric current through them that shocks Aqualad and knocks him out, while also temporarily disabling Aqualad's blades. Brainstorm then says, idiotic, he should know the water conducts electricity, and the water will help me out later. He then sees Robin. He then says, Robin will attempt to destroy my vision. Robin then throws a smoke grenade, but Brainstorm predicts this. He then thinks to himself, Miss Martian has yet to master density shifting, so it's most likely she'll come from my side. He then sees Miss Martian, but surrounds her in an electrical aura that works similar to telekinesis. He then says Superboy will attack me from the other side. He then throws Miss Martian, and she hits Superboy, who comes from the side. The minute he jumps out of the smoke. He then says Robin uses grapple. He then takes a step back, and a grapple appears, barely missing him. He then says I can use it to my advantage. He then runs electricity through the grapple wire, but Robin lets go of it before it hits him. So we then get back up and charges at Brainstorm, but Brainstorm dodges. But as Superboy charges, time slows down, and Brainstorm says, enhanced skin will make it harder for me to take him down, so I must find a hole in his defenses. Brainstorm says I'll use his nose as a canal to his brain. He then shoots a small electricity stream up Superboy's nose that hits his brain and knocks him out. Then he hears laugh and says Robin will attack him from the side. But sadly for Robin, he forgets about Aqualad's blades. Robin then slips on Aqualad's water blades and slides to Brainstorm before Brainstorm taps his nose and says you're out. The smoke then finally disappears to reveal Kid Flash temporarily paralyzed, Aqualad and Superboy and Miss Martian all knocked out, and Robin underneath Brainstorm and at his mercy. As he opening his team up and using electricity to currently wake them up, and the screen Flash says, that was hard to watch. Superman says he took them all down like they were nothing. Batman says they were completely outmatched. They never stood a chance. Black Canary says, how smart is this guy? Batman says according to Ben, his IQ is 1 million. And Flash says, really? Begins Air says, is that even a number? And Batman just says, it's a 1, followed by 30 zeros. In that form, he's the smartest person on Earth. Antonio says, and from what information I've gathered, he's not even the smartest. Martian Manhunter then says, what is? Antonio says, a form that he calls green matter, but his true name is a Galvin. Ben says the smartest Galvin made Dominatrix in the first place. Martian Manhunter also says, that's just not all the information they have. According to Megan, every time Ben tells her story, incredibly advanced tech is used. And Ben has the multiple beats that would take the entire league to do. Ben says, we have also been gathering information about Ben's aliens. Most of them are extremely powerful or intelligence. Nathaniel says, but what may have your interest even more is that Ben claims that a being named Paradox, who was a time walker, who has the ability to travel between reality and time, should have found him by now. Someone says, we'll deal with that later. But I'd rather talk about another issue. Black Canary says, what? Someone says, Ben told me to watch as a feature that can fix and alter damaged DNA. And Flash says, your point? That's when Superman says, Dominatrix considers metahumans who were not born naturally or had their body enhanced through scientific means. It means instead, count. Which means if we wanted to. Flash then cuts him off and says, alter my DNA since I wasn't born with the Speed Force. But got it instead. Superman says, yes. What else is that according to Dominatrix, Superboy has human DNA as well. But since it was made in a test tube, Ben could either turn him into a full human, and Ben finishes off with saying, or full Kryptonian. Then he says, we'll talk about this later. As he leaves, he says, I need to inform the team of a new mission. We then cut to the team being briefed by Batman, where Wobbly rubs his butt in pain. Batman says this is an island nation. It's a primary source of a dangerous and illegal neurosteroid, a strength-enhancing drug sold under the street name Venom. An infrared heat signature indicates their factory is still operating at full capacity, but all the shipments of Venom have been inexplicably cut off. This is where the team comes in. It's a recon mission. If the Justice League needs to intervene, we will. The plan requires 2 drop zones. Batman says who's in charge, but as Batman looks at Red Tornado and vice versa, Batman says work that out between you. We then cut to Miss Martian, and Miss Martian says drop zone at 30. Ogla then stands up and taps his belt, changing into a costume, to a stealth version, and says ready. Miss Martian then says cloaking ship. Ogla then jumps out the ship and lands in the water, swinging past a bunch of sea mines and cutting a hole through a net. He then jumps out of the water and lands on a beach, before running to some land-to-air missile launchers. He then puts a small disc with Ben's Omnitrix symbol for some reason, attaches it. And as the light changes to green, Ogla says Ben's disc have made the ship invisible to motion and heat sensor. And now things we don't exist. They then fly towards an opening in a forest. As Miss Martian says, we arrived in the drop zone, and everybody gets up. A bunch of hooks appear, and Kid Flash and Robin attaches them to their belts, while Kid Flash taps his chest and switches to a stealth mode. He then looks at Miss Martian and says, how cool is that? But Ben hits his Omnitrix and says Ben hits his Omnitrix, and a bright light appears, before he's replaced with a creature that says Chameleon. Chameleon. Chameleon? Yeah, Chameleon. He then turns into an all-color purple lizard, with red, green, and blue eyes, or blue-eyed helmet. He then goes invisible. Miss Martian says, incredible, it was almost like a Martian. But then Chameleon says, kind of, but this guy is meant for a nighttime stealth mission. He then appears behind her, and she says, amazing, with Wally just sighing, and Robin smirking. Chameleon then grabs onto a rope and says, mind changing it? I don't have a belt. Rope then changes to a lasso that Chameleon wraps around himself. But then Miss Martian uses her shapeshifting to make a stealth version of her clothing. Kid Flash says, hey Soups, not too late to put on a new stealth suit. But Superboy says, no capes, no tights, no offense. And Ben says, understandable. Most of them look really uncomfortable. Miss Martian says, then you are like a hero suit, Ben. But Ben looks at her, and Miss Martian says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter since you're always changing. She then puts her hood on and goes intangible. But as she drops down, everybody jumps out of the way as Superboy does a superhero landing. He then says, I knew I didn't need a line. Chimney says, we were trying to be covert, and Ron responds to saying, and as a seismic event is not covert. Miss Martian then says, drop B is a go. Ogla says, understood. He'll be there in a short while to win the oh god damn it! No, be right back, guys. Guys, I'm horribly sorry. My dogs are being really annoying. And even they're just barking at freaking leaves. But like I was saying, as Miss Martian says, drop B is a go, and Nicola says, understood. He'll be there shortly to I can't say it. He'll be there to meet us shortly. Rendezvous. Hold on, rendezvous. I can't say it. Rendezvous. There we go. Rendezvous. He'll be there shortly to rendezvous ASAP. And Robin says, Roger. He then started running through the forest. Then Robin looks at his GPS and says, it's incredible with Ben's upgrades. It can even predict a path they will most likely take and what path we should go. Then Superboy hears a crush. Says, did you hear that? And Ben says, no, you don't know super hearing. At the time. That's when he says, Robin, check the area. But he then sees that Robin is gone. And then says, damn it! And Kid Flash says, why does he do that all the time? Oculus says, over. Do you have... Oculus says, over. Ben, do you have any infrared in that form? Ben says, I should. He then scans the area. He sees a group of 4 people, each arm. I also see another squad of 6, and that's also armed. But then Chameleon says, but they'll meet each other before we do. They then hear a gunshot up and says, they want to fight each other, but kill. I want them to fight each other but not kill each other. But then Flash jumps over a rock and starts running. Chameleon says, "Wait, what are you doing, Kid Flash?" Kid Flash says, "Look for Robin." But Chameleon says, "It's too dangerous, you don't know the full area yet." That's when Flash steps on mud and slides down a hill, and lands right in the middle of two groups fighting. Kid Flash says, "So much for stealth." Chameleon says, "Damn it, kid!" He then runs towards the fight. As Wally is dodging, Chameleon appears behind a group of men and pokes him with his needle from his tail, then temporarily knocks them out. Where Superboy tackles Bane, or a less scrawny version of Bane. Robin then lands on one of them and punches them, while saying, "What is wrong with you guys?" Chameleon then grabs the guy's foot and swings at another. Says, "You ditched the team." And Kid Flash followed. Ben says, "I thought you would have followed me into the jungle, Ben." Chameleon says, "The Cham Alien. Not everybody can read minds like Miss Martian. You need to talk to us." He then pokes a guy in the neck and knocks him out. He then there's another guy and throws him in the air for Miss Martian to ram into a tree. Miss Martian says, "You said I could only read certain minds," and Ben says, "I meant only villains." But seeing how Robin never tested his pen, I think we make an exception for him. Chameleon then says, "Uphill, Aqualad." Aqualad then jumps out of the tree and grabs a man before electrocuting him. Once they tied them up, Robin says, "I recognize those uniforms. They're part of the Code of the Cobra." Ben says, "Who?" Aqualad says, "They are a dangerous extremist group. It seems they are running Santa Prisca Venom operation." Robin says they probably are, and since there are clearly no love lost between the cultists and the goons, that's why normal supplies have been cut off. Ben says, "We should retreat and return the information to Batman." Robin says, "There's not any venom, they're hoarding it. We can't leave until we know why." Ben says, "Too risky, and we're on a recon mission." Ben says, "This team needs a leader." But Kid Flash says, "It does, and it should be a 12-year-old who doesn't tell his teammates anything. He wants and runs out the forest." Ben says, "I'm 13, not like you're a mature teenager." And Ben says, "Enough, you two, you're both idiots. Neither you should lead the lead." The rest doesn't know how to communicate, and Kid Flash can't take things seriously. Kid Flash says, "Oh, like you're so serious." Ben says, "At least I know when to shut up and stay hidden instead of thinking I'm all that. Now let's handle this Cobra code and we'll deal with this later." He then walks away, but Miss Martian asks Superboy if he doesn't want to lead. He says no. She says no. He says, "What about you?" The Martian says, "After the Twister fiasco, no." She then says, not to mention, I think there's somebody better for the job." And Ben says, "This conversation is over." But then Superboy hears a man say, "Take them while they're distracted," in a foreign language. But Ben says, "Quiet, and for now, I'll play along and give me what I need." But Robin says, "I'm not finished talking, Ben." Ben says, "Chameleon." Ben says, "Enough with that. Why do you name your form such stupid names?" But then Bane starts laughing and says, "Such clever niños. But you don't know half the story." He then says, "Let me show you the rest. Get you into the factory to my secret entrance." But then says Miss Martian, read his mind, and Miss Martian says there is a secret entrance, but he's hiding something. But as he tries to read his mind, he starts mentally reciting football scores in Spanish, saying, "I'm not that easy, chica." But Ben says, it's not complicated. The enemy of your enemy is my friend." And Superboy says, "Got any forms that can enter a person's mind, Ben, and force them to tell the truth?" Ben says, "I do have one. Now I think about it." Ben says, "Go for it." Chameleon taps the watch, and a small flash replaces Chameleon with a small blue creature with a green dress with black zigzag lines, blue hair, green eyes, large fairy wings, with purple spots. He then says, "Pesky dusk." And Wally and Robin start laughing, with Superboy chuckling and Aqualad smirking. But then Miss Martian says, "Oh, how adorable," and grabs him. But Ben starts laughing, saying, "What can that do?" Robin says, "He has a point." And Pixie Dust says, "Shut up, purr. This guy is weak, but can interrogate, purr." And Bane says, "My mind and will is strong. You're not getting anything out of me." And Pixie Dust says, "You can't guard your mind from me, purr. When I can enter it." His finger then starts to glow before Bane says, "Must resist," before falling asleep. Kid Flash says, "All you did was put him to sleep." Pesquita says, "And cause he's asleep, I can enter his dreams, purr." We then cut to the leader of the code, the Cobra, where this man says our patrol squad has yet to check in. And Cobra Code leader says, "Keep an eye out." We then cut to Robin looking through a pair of goggles, with Ben laying down on the ground, sleeping and drooling. Robin then says, "There's a large shipment. I'm guessing the buyer is near." Kid Flash whispers to Miss Martian to remind him never fall asleep around Ben. But then Ben chimes in and says, "My watch is fully recharged. Let's go find his secret passageway." But as they walk, Superboy lifts a rock and opens up a tunnel. And continue walking until they find a door. While it says, "Dang, there's a fingerprint lock." But a small green light appears, and the door gets covered in green circuitry. It opens up with Ben saying, "See, I told you we don't need Bane." And somewhere else, Bane wakes up and screams, "Get away from me, Dream Demon!" But he looks around and sees his men and himself in some sort of blue crystal. We then cut to the Young League, as Ben says, "Here's my plan. We stay hidden. I use upgrade equipment to hack their systems and share our own new and old information with the League. And we get out." So then says, "Robin's gone." Ben says, "I'm gonna smack that kid." Kid Flash says, "I'll get him." But Ben says, "No." But Kid Flash is gone. Then says, "Uncle, I remember to burn Kid Flash's junk food." He then turns into Spider Monkey and shoots a web that Superboy and Aqualad climbs. But as they're watching, Aqualad says, "They're only taking the noob patches." Ben says, "Does Venom expire?" Aqualad says, "Doubt it." Spider Monkey says, "What could they be doing?" But then Robin throws a throwing bird, which is what his batteries are called, as a computer, and smoke releases from it, knocking out a guy that's at the computer. But as Robin hacks the computer, he says, "What are these?" That's when Kid Flash appears with a chocolate bar. This is what you find. So Kid Flash says, "Look at these screens," and says, "The Venom." But then wait. The serum for the failed movie went to place, and Robin says, "Blockbuster, and you stole that joke from Ben." But Robin says they're merging Blockbuster and Venom, making a stronger story that lasts forever. But wait a second, there's even more. One is called the Transmutation Helmet. Kid Flash, what's that? It's a helmet that mutates animals, apparently. They found it in a box sent to them by a note saying "Mysterious Helper." Kid Flash says, "Well, does it remind me of something?" Kid Flash then remembers Ben telling him a story, how Ben fought this guy who mutated a bird that kidnapped his cousin by using a helmet that later brought the bones of a T-Rex back to life. But Kid Flash is eating some chocolate. Kid Flash says, "It's not ringing a bell." But never mind, before taking a bite out of his chocolate. We cut back to Spider Monkey and the others. Superboy says he hears a chopper, and Ben says, "Miss Martian, check it out." And she says, "Got it." She then goes invisible. But Ben says, "Call Kid Flash and Robin, Aqualad." Aqualad says, "Can't. Well, I got a static." Ben says, "Try the communicators I gave you." Aqualad pulls out a disc that looks like Ben's watch somewhere else. But as Aqualad pulls out a disc that looks like Ben's watch somewhere else in a back cave, the same disc is lighting up. Somewhere else, aka Kid Flash's room, that same disc is also ringing. Aqualad says they're not responding. Ben says, "Okay, you try, Superboy." But Superboy says, "I broke mine." And Ben says, "Seriously, I made those things super strong. How'd you break it?" And Superboy says, "I dropped it in the ocean and a fish took it." Ben just gives him a look and says, "You didn't break it, you lost it. But I'm not gonna go looking for a fish." But as the chopper lands, Miss Martian sees a man wearing a hockey mask. She then says, "Aqualad and Ben, they're here." And she then sends a mental image. Ben says, "He looks familiar." Aqualad says, "It's Sportsmaster." Ben says, "I thought villains from my world had stupid looks and names." But as he sees them talking, Ben says, "I have a bad feeling about this." But as the Cobra leader says, "That reminds me, you said you has something for me." As he talks to Sportsmaster. And Sportsmaster says, I do. "One day I was mountain climbing, I found a cave, and I found this in this cave." He then pulls out a glass container, a robotic leg. But Washington sends another mental image, and when Ben receives it, he says, "That's not possible." That's when Aqualad says, "What is it?" Ben says, "We need to check that leg." Nicholas says, "Why?" Ben says, "It's a part of a powerful enemy in my world. I'll explain it later." But then the Cobra leader hands Sportmaster a wooden container. Says, "Here's our trade." As he opens up, he says, "Can't wait to go horseback riding with this." But then he says, "Where's the virus?" Cobra says, I thought it'd be unwise to put them in the same container. He then hands Sportsmaster another container, and then sends them away. And then says, with the helmet and the bios, Justice League won't stand a chance. But as Ben sees the legs being pushed, in a glass container, Ben says, I'm going to join that delivery men in the bathroom, or in the broom closet. He then turns into a chameleon and climbs down a wall. But as Cobra says, it's nice making deals with you. And Sportsmaster says, likewise. But I thought we could clean up the place, cause I see some vermins. He then throws a spear that impales a wall. But as Ben sighs because it barely missed him, the spear explodes. And guys, real quick break. I'm sorry this video isn't coming out that good. It's kind of been hard to record lately. And I'm having trouble recording this for some reason. So I'm sorry. Hopefully this comes about better in editing. But let's get back to the what if. But as Sportsmaster throws the spear and explodes, it sends Ben flying into a set of box crates, breaking it. But as the men surround it, something camouflage hops out onto one of the men and knocks him out before he scurries away. So the Superboy jumps down and smashes a group of guards. But then the monster, Mammoth, the code of the Cobra made earlier, and Bane fought earlier, rams him and sends him flying. The Knucklehead jumps down and starts taking people down. But he's about to get shot. Flash and Robin appears and takes some men down. Robin says, what happened? And Knucklehead says, Sportsmaster's here. Now, an objective change. Knucklehead then says, Miss Martian, link our minds. She says, on it. Then Robin then asks, why fight? Why are we fighting? He says, why did the mission change? He says, they have something dangerous from his world that they can't keep. And you would know that if you had your backup communicator on yourself. Kid Flash says, I forgot it at home. Robin then says, Batman realized it's better than the League and took it. Robin then says, I'm going to shut down the chopper. Ben says, stay as the group. Robin says, sorry, can't hear you. Ben says, we're talking telepathically. But as he runs off, Chameleon says I need to let some anger out. He then smacks the watch before turning into a giant orange tiger on 2 feet, with claws coming out of his forearms, and wearing a green wrestler outfit. He then says, let me tell you something, Robin, disciple of Batman. I've been tired of you vanishing all night. And Kid Flash, knock it off running ahead. Then a man shoots him and nothing happens. Raph says, and now Rapper's gonna rip the fangs out of this Cobras and turn them into necklaces. He then grabs the Cobra's head and smashes him into the ground before throwing him at 2 other Cobras, sending them flying. But as Raph is throwing and punching Cobra soldiers, the Sonic Cobra leader says, Sportsmaster, you're like hunting down creatures. We'll take down this angry Tomcat down. And Sportsmaster says, my pleasure. But he throws a spear at Raph. Raph catches it and smiles. But then the spear explodes in his face. Raph then touches his new burnt mark and shows his teeth and growls. And says, let me tell you something, Sportsmaster. There's one thing you don't want to do, and that's piss off Raph! And you just did it! He then charges and tries to strike Sportsmaster, but misses and hits the ground. But Sportsmaster punches Raph in the face. It does nothing, and Raph tries to bite him. But as he dodges, he then pulls out a bow staff and tries to smack Raph. But Raph bites it before using his claws to cut it. But as he's about to hit Sportsmaster, Superboy is thrown at him. Raph then sees the monster charging him. He says, let me tell you something, Superboy. The clone of Superman. Raph shouldn't fight your battles. He then charges at the Mammoth, and they get into a stalemate. Raph then says, handle Sportsmaster. I'll deal with this ugly jerk. But as the monster roars at Raph, Raph roars back before headbutting him and pushing him back. But as Sportsmaster gets back up, he sees Superboy. But he then dodges his blow. But when then hits Miss Martian, as she's taking down the rest of her goons. She grabs the legs and says, I hope I don't have to hold this in a special way. But somewhere else, Robin is messing with the chopper. chopper as Miss Martian is taking the robotic leg away. But then the Cobra leader appears with one of his main henchmen and says Batman must be worried to send a group of children and a monster after me. Irwin says, what's the problem? You look worried. But Cobra says this is beneath me. He then says, Shimmer, take him down. But as she charges, Robin touches her. But then Aqualad says, Robin, come back. Robin then throws a smoke grenade and disappears. Aqualad then says, we need to retreat. But Raph says, let me tell you something, Aqualad, disciple of Aquaman, a native of Atlantis. Raph never retreats! But Kid Flash says, what's wrong with him? Why is he acting so angry? Miss Martian says, well, Jerry Ray gets anxiety around tech. And Blizzard does his pairing a lot. Maybe Raph's angry issues. That's when Raph says, let me tell you something, Miss Martian. Last daughter of Mars, and he's the Martian Manhunter. Raph doesn't have anger issues. He has anger. Buckler says, Raph, we need to retreat. We're outnumbered. Raph then says, fine. But Raph will be back. He then ducks as the mammoth punches him and grabs his arm and throws him over himself. Hitting Sportsmaster. He then says, let me tell you something, Code of the Copa, the streamers group. Raph will be back, and you make smoothies out of all your venom. They then start running into mines. When Aqualad says, Raph, Superboy, destroy the pillars. Before Superboy can do anything, he gets pushed as well as the others up ahead. Before Raph turns around and tells Omnitrix, changing to Armadillo. He then uses his jackhammer's arms to block the path by creating a control cave-in. That's when Robin says, I can't believe my first mission as team leader went this south. That's when Aqualad says, because you had to lead a team like this. With Batman, your roles are defined. You don't need to exchange words. Robin says, so what I need is to hold your hands. Ben says, what you need is to build a connection. When my grandpa assigned me a partner, he always needed orders, and we needed to share information during a fight. It was only when we built a bond we could just share a glance and work together. Aqualad says, you may have experience, but you're not ready to lead a team just yet, Robin. Robin says, who should? That's when Kid Flash says, well, I guess it's up to me. But Ben says, no, you're the worst. And Kid Flash says, hey! That's when Miss Martian says, things kinda obvious. Super says, yeah, it is. That's when Aqualad looks at Ben and Ben says, please no. Regular says, you have the most experience. Your forms are the smartest and strongest out of the entire group. Even your universe is smarter and stronger. You claimed yourself that you were 7 worlds in universe and we were just 10. Ben says, but I had help from my cousin and grandpa, and even later my friends and partners. Willa says, that's another point. You said you realized that you can't rely on your watch. You train your body. Imagine then chimes in and says, didn't you mention that when a group of supervillains broke out with the power of your aliens, you led a group of men and took them down? Ben says, that's only because I knew their weaknesses. But then Oakley grabs Ben's shoulder and gives him a stare. Ben says, I have to do this, don't I? He then sighs and rubs his hand against his head. He then says, okay, new rule. No running off. Or vanishing without telling me or Aqualad. Not the group, no, not in Aqualad. Not the group, just me. Aqualad then gives Kid Flash a look. Rule 2. No saying, and I repeat, no saying it can't get any worse. That was easy. Or what could go wrong, or anything like the sorts. Miss Martian says, I've seen enough Earth shows to know that. Bender says, now most important thing, you guys have to listen to me. I say fight, we fight. I say we run, we run. Understood? Everybody nods. Ben says, good. He says, now, Superboy punched Kid Flash and Robin for acting like toddlers. Superboy then punches them and Kid Flash says, ouch. Robin says, was that really necessary? Ben says, yes. Aqualad then says, what's the plan now? Team leader. Ben grabs his chin and says, what we need to do is keep the legs safe. Because it could be more dangerous than anything they could make. Ben says, I have a plan. As he starts running, says, follow me, as he starts running to the tunnel. They see Bane trying to jump with his feeding case in the crystal. Ben says, Superboy. And Bane says, damn it, before he gets knocked out by Superboy. But then says, what is it? Everyone says, look, like Bane was going to blow something up. But we delayed his plan with your crystals. And says, I can use this to my advantage. And Kid Flash says, what are you gonna do? And Ben says, like my old friend Kevin used to say, let's wreck some stuff. Because the Sportsmaster helicopter turning on, with Cobra saying it's been repaired. But then the ground starts to rumble before the factory storage room caves in. And the Sportsmaster says, what is that? When he sees the ground shake and the cracks leading to the chopper. And says, don't let the chopper fall in. The chopper then lifts up before the ground caves in below them. But as Armadillo climbs out, he says, if you were just a second quicker, I would have broken it down. He says, why not everything go up with a boom like this? He then pulls out a button and presses it. The factory then blows up and destroys those containers. They had the new drug. Cobra says, no! But before Superboy lands and looks at Mammoth, says, round 2. But as Mammoth looks at Superboy, they then charge at each other. As Wally shows up and attacks from the side, they run from the other side. But as they continue fighting, Robin remembers Ben's words. The girl with orange hair is dressed differently from the other goons. She's probably a bigger threat. Robin then dodges 2 goons before throwing a ball and a rope at Shimmer to get her that ties her up. Robin then remembers Ben's words. He says the Cobra leader is really mysterious, so the high chance is really strong. So don't fight him alone. But as Robin tries to kick him, Cobra grabs his leg and Robin says, I should have listened before getting thrown. But then one of the Cobra thugs gets knocked out. And Kid Flash says, I was going to ask if I can keep the robotic leg. Ben grabs a souvenir, but just in case I can't, I'll take one of these guys' masks. And maybe your cloak. He then charges at Cobra. We cut back to Superboy fighting Mammoth. But then Aquila jumps and says, I'll handle this. You deal with Sportsmaster. As he turns around, Sportsmaster shoots multiple times at him. He then shoots him multiple times. Sportsmaster then says, give me the rope. But as he hears static, he then sees the chopper start spinning out of control, and sees Miss Martian holding the pilot, and the robotic leg. He then sees you win this time, but before he can vanish, his sentence is cut off before Penn punches him in the face, sending him flying. And thanks to Armadillo's drilling hands, he knocks him out in one punch. Ben says, sorry. They all decided to gang up on me, and it's hard to knock out henchmen without hurting them. Too much in this form. We then cut to Oculus splashing and pushing back Mammoth with water before electrocuting it and knock him to the ground. We then cut to Kid Flash and Robin fighting Cobra. But as Cobra grabs Robin, Kid Flash hits him in the side, forcing him to let go. He then tries to attack Kid Flash, but Robin kicks him in the knee. He then hears a scream before Superboy tries to smash him, but she barely dodges. He then ducks as Aquila blade grazes his face. He then gets back as he's surrounded. He then gets punched by Armadillo. He then sees he's surrounded again. And then says, perhaps we'll meet again, before he takes a step back. But as Robin checks, he says he's gone. Ben says, how do you do that? But Kid Flash says, well, at least you caught Sportsmaster. But then Miss Martian says, wait, he's gone. Ben says, what the heck? I knocked him out. They turn around and see all the damage he did. Ben says, even though I'm the leader, I'll take credit for the fire. But the villain escaping and the cover being blown, that's on Robin and Kid Flash. We then cut to the base and Batman says, it was a simple recon mission. Whatever wrong, but Ben says, I made a choice and I decided that there was a bigger threat that I needed to deal with. Right? And Batman says, I'm aware. He looks at the robotic leg. That is highly advanced technology in a highly advanced container that Ben put it in. Ben says, stopping the resurrection of the man who tried to create a universe in his own image was worth the casualty of one factory and 2 villains getting away. They mention, according to my grandpa, no first mission goes according to plan. This doesn't make Batman stop for a second. He then says, I expected you to properly explain that leg, Tennyson. If it's that dangerous, you say it is. Good job. He then walks away. We think of the Sportsmaster who's holding a vial, says, I only got 1 vial. But one of the many white and blue screens says it can be reverse engineered. But did you get that? But you get that thing. And Persona says, I did. But don't understand why we treated the robotic leg for it. But the voice says, we don't understand how to use a leg. But this is already ready to be used. Sportsmaster then pulls out a helmet made from a biscuity strainer, but on top of those strainers are 2 antennas. There's a wiring thing hanging out at the bottom. and a wire and identical wires, a dial, and a pair of earmuffs, and a cartridge. But the voice says, remove the biscuity strainer, we only need the antenna and processor. But as the cartridge dangles, it spins to reveal the word property of Alioso Amanano, or Dr. Animo, on the back of it. But the voice says, I hope it was worth it. We lost Cadmus, Mr. Twister, and now Santa Prisca. One voice says, happenstance, says once is happenstance, two is coincidence, three is an enemy action. Importantly, what about the green shapeshifter? Another voice of the light says, we will deal with time. And guys, I'm ending the video here because my voice is kidding me. And sorry the video wasn't as good as the other ones, but hopefully you guys liked it, and for now, peace out and goodbye.